Welcome back to Morning Express today. Now, let's see if we can join Dr. Steve Okwori virtually to touch a little bit on the 2025 appropriation bill as sent to the National Assembly by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, a 49.7 trillion naira 2025 budget estimate. Hello and a very good morning to you, Doctor. It's wonderful to have you join us on Morning Express for this concluding segment. Hello, Dr. Steve. Well, before we join in Dr. Steve, let's just get a little highlight of... hello, Dr. Steve. Let's get a little bit of a highlight into some of the largest gulpers of the money within the 2025 budget. Now, for defense and security, the proposed amount is 4.91 trillion naira. For infrastructure, 4.06 trillion naira. For health, 2.48 trillion naira, and education is gulping up 3.52 trillion naira. The president had estimated the GDP growth at 3.89%, while also citing that our external reserves are pegged at 42 billion US dollars. And of course, debt servicing within the budget is a staggering 5.81 trillion naira. Hello, Dr. Steve, are you with us now? Well, I believe we'll get a little bit of connection there with Dr. Steve in just a short while to have this concluding segment of Morning Express. Hello, Dr. Steve. Hello, Dr. Steve. Well, it appears Dr. Steve is having a little bit of trouble with his connection. Before we delve into matters with Dr. Steve, let's revisit the Daily Times newspaper once again while we wait for that connection with him, and then have a little refreshing of mind with regards to the budget. Let's take a look at the Daily Times. Now, this is a statement from the Deputy Senate President on the front cover of the Daily Times newspaper, citing 2025 budget will transform Nigeria if fully implemented. Now, this is a comment coming in from the DSP. Hello, Dr. Steve, are you with us now?
I'm with you, I can hear you.
All right, fantastic. I was citing how much has been marked for spending within the 49.7 trillion naira budget. Defense gulping of 4.91 trillion naira, and infrastructure gulping of 4.06 trillion naira, amongst other things, health, education, and the rest. But particularly for infrastructure, 4 trillion naira within 1 year, an estimate given by the president in the budget. Do you think this figure is in tandem with the nature of dilapidated structures and deplorable roads that we have in the country, to sort of balance up the equation?
Yeah. Thank you for having me to air my perspective on the budget that was presented on Wednesday by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Now, I don't have issues with the figures that is contained in the budget. But first and foremost, we have to know that a budget is a proposal. It's not actual funds, right? Not that the funds or the money is on ground. It's a proposal. This is what they intend to do in the next budget cycle, that's 2025 budget cycle. Now, you see, there are defense and security and infrastructure. These are two sectors of the budget, or two parts or sections of the budget that are very critical, right? We're talking about the economy here. We're talking about hardship in the economy. We're talking about people living from hand to mouth in the country, and there's a reason for all this. One of the reasons is that it has to do with insecurity. And another reason is that, do we have critical infrastructures in place? Do you have road networks in place? Do you have the rail line? Are they working? and all that. These are as infrastructure that we need to have them in place, right? So that conveyance of goods and services can be done through most of these infrastructures that we are talking about. If development strive on key infrastructure, development strive when there is insecurity, when there is security in place. When these two, three critical areas are not in place, you don't expect development to thrive in the country. Now, the budget for the infrastructure and the defense and security, for me, they are justifiable. If we have opportunity for us to see how to even have an increase in these two critical areas, I think it will be justified and all that. Nigeria is confronted with a lot of insecurity issues, whether we like it or not. You saw that the last NBS security survey that it did, you saw the rate of crime in the 6 geopolitical zones, and you saw how much Nigerians parted with to kidnappers, to the tune of over 2 trillion naira. That kidnappers collected from
2.22 trillion naira ransom in 1 year.
In 1 year, So a whole lot is wrong. We need to have the budget for security. That's fantastic, But my worry in all of this is that how well and how much do we implement this budget? Budgets come in, year out. How well and how much do we implement this budget? What's the percentage of implementation? What's going to be the source of income? Where will the government source the funds from to finance the budget? These are my worries. The bottlenecks that comes with implementation of budget. Are the monies judiciously used for the purpose that is contained in the budget? How many Nigerians are milking this budget that we are putting forward in the next budget cycle of 2025? You are aware that the budget of 2024 has been extended to June next year.
Yes.
You understand? So it means for that extension, it means that there is no money to fund the 2024 budget, and that's why they are extending it to 2025, mid-2025. So when will the budget of 2025, when will it start running from?
Now, Dr. Steve, you were asking a very pertinent question here, that where will the government get funding to be able to sponsor this budget and see it through and through? Now, remember, just recently we saw agencies like the Nigeria Customs Service, the FIRS and the like, citing that they had exceeded a threshold, or they had exceeded their annual target of some certain trillions or billions or trillions of naira. Now, here it says that the federal government targets a 34.82 trillion naira in revenue to fund the budget, IGR. And then it intends to borrow about 13 trillion naira to supplement the budget with the 34 trillion naira revenue that will be gotten here. Yet again, we are turning our attention towards borrowing. But on the flip side, some experts or analysts will say kudos to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for such a spike in revenue generation since his assumption of office. What are your thoughts on this, and what party do you fall under?
Yeah, it's a welcome development for us to see that agencies of government or institutions of government that generate revenue for the country are doing very well. I remember that Customs declared over 5 trillion naira as revenue they generated. We have FIRS, we have JAM, we have other institutions or agencies of government that are generating revenue, internally generated revenue for government. Now, it's a welcome development. But I think that there are also some leakages that are within these agencies of government, that some of these revenues that are generated are going into private pockets or private accounts. So government should touchlight those agencies of government and try to see how to close those leakages, because I think that you can generate more of these revenues that they are declaring. Now, for the purpose of borrowing, countries all over the world, even countries that are more developed than Nigeria, also borrow. But do they borrow for the purpose, for what they are borrowing for? Is the money used for the purpose why they are borrowing? Yes, we can apply in those countries that the money that they borrow are used judiciously for the purpose why they are borrowing. But in the case of Nigeria, do we borrow for the purpose of using the funds that we borrow judiciously? That's the question, right? Do we borrow and this money end up entering private accounts or private pockets? That's another question. So if we are borrowing for the purpose of why we are borrowing, and the purpose is used judiciously, because as we borrow, we must have to repay. And interest comes alongside borrowing, right? So we must see that while we are borrowing, it's used for the purpose so that at the end of the day, we can equally pay, not allowing the country to keep remaining in debt, as a result of borrowing.
So, now also on the back of this, Dr. Steve, you might also note that within the budget, debt servicing is set to go up over 15 trillion naira out of the entire figure. Meanwhile, defense, education, and even infrastructure, key major sectors in the country, are only going up about 12.49 trillion naira. Does this look good from your perspective?
It doesn't look good, because from what we are seeing in the budget, more percentage that is in the budget is accrued to debt services to the tune of about 15 trillion. So it means that we are putting a heavy baggage or load on our head as a country. So a whole lot is wrong, and I think that if we truly implement the budget according to how a country that runs that has people that run the country with integrity, I think we can achieve the aim of that budget that we are seeing. Don't forget that there are critics outside the PDP and all that have come to say that the budget is not a favorable budget. The budget is inhuman. The budget will but we should look at the benefits of the proposed budget the president laid before the National Assembly on Wednesday. I think that whatever that is contained in the budget, if we agree to do the right thing, right? And you see, why we are not succeeding in the implementation of the budget is because Nigerians are not doing the right thing. We don't expect Japanese or Korea to come and run or fund the budget for us. It is we as a country, we are the people that must see that implement the budget to the latter. Politics should be aside budget implementation. Right? I saw that when the president laid the budget, there were a whole lot of applause from the members of the National Assembly. Now, the members of the National Assembly, I expect that they should do their own bit of the budget. Yes. Once they do that, their legislative functions by oversighting agencies of government that are supposed to see how to judiciously use the budget to implement the budget to at least a reasonable percentage, so that at least we can see the benefits and the gains that comes with such budget. But are we seeing those gains? Are we seeing the benefits, especially in the area of insecurity? How well have insecurity improved with the previous budget we have had? Rather, we are seeing kidnapping for ransom on the rise, banditry activity on the rise. Bandits are levying communities. Communities are paying heavily for their security and all that. So we should see that this budget is implemented, for the benefit of Nigeria and for the benefit of the state. And this doesn't have to do with the federal government alone. The state government are also part of what we are talking about here. How well are they going to implement? Because all the state governors, we see them presenting budgets for their various states. How well are they going to see how to implement this budget? And my brother, I think that as a country, if we choose to turn around things, things will work out well for us, with the budget that we have. Just the way you said, we have internally generated revenues from government agencies and all that. They have passed across their threshold, which is an improvement on their part, right? So it goes to show that we are going to do less borrowing to fund this budget. But let us see that we do the right thing with integrity.
It's about doing the right thing with integrity, like you've pointed out, Dr. Steve. A recent World Bank report stated that for Nigeria to exit the current infrastructure deficit it is facing, it will need to pump in about $10 billion annually over the next 10 years. Calculate that. That's about $100 billion in 1 decade. A very huge task that is almost unachievable for Nigeria. And yet with a $4 trillion naira budget in 1 year, a 4 trillion naira budget, proposal in 1 year within our entire budget for infrastructure. Do you think that maybe channeling these monies into rehabilitating old dilapidated structures, rehabilitating deplorable roads will be better than starting off new infrastructure projects that might not end up seeing completion before the end of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration?
My brother, in the last 60 years or more, since Nigeria's independence, we've been talking about infrastructure. We've been talking about roads in this country. How much has been voted for the construction of either new roads or rehabilitated roads? Now, the point is, are we even carrying this road, the standard of the roads that we construct or rehabilitate? How well are we even carrying out the project in fixing this road? As construction companies are constructing roads, behind them, roads are getting bad. What the supervising agencies are they do? Right? It means that they are compromised. The contractor is not meeting, is not constructing the road according to standard or specifications. So how long can we continue to talk about roads in this country? And road in this country has become the only means of transportation that an average Nigerian can afford. A lot of Nigerians cannot afford air transportation as we speak, right? Our goods and so are transported on these roads. Our rail systems are bad. We don't even have a rail system where goods can be transported from one state to another. So a whole lot is wrong. How do we get it right? We cannot continue to do the same thing and we expect a different result. It's only a madman that does that, So fixing the roads takes time, I'm aware, but according to the World Bank report, yes, we cannot do it all of a sudden. It's a gradual thing. When we itemize or identify critical roads that we need to fix them according to standard, according to specification, right? So that there will be compromise where these roads, as they are fixed, they will not last for more than 2 months, 3 months, 6 months. They begin to go bad again. So how long can we continue to remain like that? So there's need for us to see how to be committed to when we are rendering services to our fatherland. And that's why I talked about integrity. Integrity is doing something that is right when nobody is watching you. Now, you have this conversation between contractor and the supervising ministry or agency. And at that point, they begin to compromise standard, compromise specification because of their selfish interest or selfish benefit. So we must see that we rise to the occasion, to see that budget that is presented before the National Assembly is implemented, and a larger percentage of it should be seen to be implemented. We cannot have budget and we see the implementation of budget is below 50%. You can't achieve results with that. And a whole lot of bottlenecks also contribute. Administrative bottlenecks.
Dr. Steve, talking about those bottlenecks that you were that you had just mentioned, a 16 trillion naira debt burden is, on Nigeria as it stands right now. And many experts fear that the budget might not really deliver any tangible gains for the country. In closing, your final thoughts. Do you think that this budget of restoration would really restore the glory days of Nigeria as, insinuated by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu?
You see, I want to be optimistic here, as a patriotic Nigerian. I don't want to live in despair, right? I want to believe that the title that they have given it, this 2025 budget of restoration. Restoration comes with a lot of meaning. It comes with hope, because as I speak to you, most Nigerians are living in hopelessness. They live in fear, they live in intimidation, they live in anxiety. How do you now restore that confidence back to Nigerians that if they can move from one location to another to carry out their lawful businesses? How do you restore that hope that critical infrastructures will be in place, like power? Will it be in place? So that budget that is titled Budget of Restoration, it comes with a lot of responsibility on the part of Bola Ahmed Tinubu, because he wants to see how to restore the confidence of Nigerians that under his government, under his leadership, a lot can happen. A lot can happen for the benefits of Nigerians and the gains of dividends of democracy. We can start seeing it. Because how many Nigerians do we have that can afford the basic survival needs? We're talking about food, shelter, health, clothing, all that. How many of them do we have that can attain these basic survival needs? Very few of them. So what happens to the remaining majority of the other Nigerians that are there? So he needs to see how to restore this hope back to Nigerians that are out there that voted him into power.
All right, Dr. Steve, I must thank you so much. I'm afraid time is fast running out and we have to end this conversation here. But it's been wonderful having you join us virtually, as always, to lend in your thoughts to matters of national interest.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Well, that has been Dr.